We are also fortunate to be able to receive His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche's infinite blessings. Through his teachings today and tomorrow, Rinpoche has requested that you all think of any questions you may have that might arise today or tomorrow, and write them down on the cards that are by the temple door. And please keep them on subject of what Rinpoche is talking about, and very concise and clear. And we will collect those at noon tomorrow afternoon. Thank you.
당소 담비 주로지 팀으로 강인 삼제도 아침 보이네디 망바가 시는 산축세는 송고요해 드니다다디 이제 팀아 가리를 삼제도 아체주리 르양디양 쪼드니드니 추지대서 강신에 샘진의 핀바다 대외 탑래 핀바다 대외 탑은 핀바다 대외 탑대 제거는 듣고 줘래 저 가리를 저 산축세를 나 고소해.
Lasso Dr. Rinpoche. Okay. So Dashi Delek, Dharma friends. So first, whatever you do, whether it is in a context of the Dharma or in the world, in a mundane context, whatever you do, love and compassion and loving kindness are always very important. And in Buddhism, we refer to it as bodhicitta. So no matter what we do, also for just ordinary worldly people, this love and compassion is very important. And when we sing songs, for example, whether in a religious way or in a mundane way, these are all can become methods to develop altruism, to benefit others. And in order for that method to become that, we need to create the right causes. So the method is the right cause. And that cause is the cause of benefiting others is bodhicitta. That's all.
가서기 강인은 그 좁아지 뒤는 공에 남바라 잡서 성는 포르드 성고스 맨고로 고초요고스 그래서 말이 맨이줘라 맨가레다 안하지 맨기다가 맨고로 고초요고 이렇게 포르드라 성고레스 포르드도 다 가래요 되나 들이 참마더니 남을 샘데 요리 샘데 대화가 적가리 대화가 샘내송만이 너게가 샘내송만이 대화저더니 샘내는 삼지 마도 찍자요 말이지 대들이 산지의 삼지에 하고는들이 잠이 썸나 강에 잡네 다 삼지에 싸네 누적은 더 탑도 사지마도 수하고 말이 이렇게 콩 잠이 썸나 강에 잡네 삼지에 도도지 탑거리를 다 강에 당보 샘지 습지 탑들 피고 선 바들 내가 가래지를 피를 내가래 파르드스 바토고를 내가래 타마지 수남지 삼지에 싸다 다지 습지에 떼고 사바 모아지래 탑고 모아서 모아 밀리터리 삼지 돌아도 요리 이 대회는 되니 모아리더니 당보 사초 샘지바 바지를 개돌사과 타만 호와제 바데 탑디 총 호와 송들이 호한들이자 하장 짜침 보인바 들이 때때 호와더니 들이 차지 삼제데 나도 그 동떡고요 아주 생리 욕떡고요 들이 대외들이 남게 사지 삼제 그리고 오마들 삼제를 송화에 마디가 뻐거들 삼제요래 삼제를 남지비 요면 오반도야 요만에 대외들이 포른데 사지가 포바래지 나한테 삼제래지 삼제도 삼바 체베 바래지 그 십지 탐시를 삼지 제고 사람들이 이런 통고서
And so Jiten Sumgön had said that once a Buddhist has taken refuge, so once we become a Buddhist having taken refuge, we need to have this bowl. They need to hold such a begging bowl. And the second thing is they also need to put the name Gunchok at the beginning of their refuge name. That's after taking refuge. So one thing is that they need to have this begging bowl. They need to possess this begging bowl. Because what's the meaning of this bowl? It is that now every being in the world has a mind. And because they have a mind, they have all the causes of happiness and suffering within themselves. And so the cause of happiness comes from the mind, and also the cause of suffering comes from the mind. And the only cause of happiness from within the mind is loving kindness. And so if you understand the Buddha's loving kindness, you know that it's not ordinary. The Buddha actually made great effort for 3 endless aeons, accumulating loving kindness, producing more and more, growing his loving kindness. And it's hard for people to really understand the extent of the Buddha's love. But he truly attained this great immeasurable love for beings. And so what is the method to develop it? It begins with first wanting to benefit sentient beings. And then secondly comes the path of accomplishing that. And that is the path of the 6 paramitas. And no matter what we practice on that path, it's all a way to grow our love. And then in the end, we must dedicate that virtue for all beings. And dedication is the greatest method, because if we do not dedicate our virtue, then the virtue can become lost. So first, we cultivate bodhicitta. Then in the middle, we engage in virtuous activity. And at the end, we dedicate them. And dedication is extremely important. And then through that, this was the Buddha's path. And so through the Buddha's dedication for sentient beings, his love flows toward all beings. And so we can think that the Buddha's love has flown into this begging bowl. And then as we drink it, it also enters us, we receive it. And that actually is also symbolized by the content of the bowl. So there is some milk in the bowl, and that represents the Buddha's love. Just like a mother's love for her child naturally produces the breast milk. No one has to make it. It flows naturally out of great love. And so similarly, the Buddha's being flows for all sentient beings. And so this is the love, the loving kindness that we should develop, this an immeasurable love that we want to send toward all sentient beings. And so when you drink from this begging bowl, think that this is what I'm actually drinking. So?
Make Tonya Miss. I'm doing here that Koya the Yori. Something you want to Mango Unity. Oh, you in the middle of me like when the Jimmy Vatilla, the recovery, same with the Tongores, save the Kali Togore, there is Sanji on the Edeke, to see Amari Togores. Ama take a Ramjin Potter Jayores. Potter Jay, Potter Mother be Galiores. Then Jevara Tini Rita, that Merito Socha Kari in a Julia, Mata point to she song. Then to she day, then it is something to be always. Mata point the children already. The veteran Corderigaki, all the gone country. Shake it all drama, Jesus, the Yapumo. The Ama the Dutch today, the Amagan the marriage. Amatino, the Amin had something or is. Massadina, the something to drink the Amatina. The Amatachimore, some. The least handed on the Shadana. The Amakache or it. Amachigris, Namatibato made Maris. So Tiakache Langi. They were the water to drown me, but said the share marriage. Said the share, man. So look down me, but ain't going to it. Look down me, but I should marry or it. More to kill. Oh, die your side. Get it down, look down me, but not. Look on some but Mamma gave a ticket or some marriage. Or that any changata, something going to man now, cut I never seem to something. Dolab goes. That's it, the yard.
Sorry. And so this loving kindness is very precious, but we cannot see it with our eyes. We can hear about it with our ears. We speak about its great qualities. There is love, it exists, even though it's not visible to the eye. It's something that the mind must see. And how can the mind see it? How can the mind find it? So the Buddha explained, it begins with remembering the kindness of a mother. A mother loves her child, and the child, because she loves the child also loves the mother. And so this is a deep connection that they share. And then through this connection between mother and child, true love arises. And that is not just for human, also animals, whether animal or human, there's a special connection between mother and child. And this connection, remembering this connection between mother and child, is the ground from which love begins to grow, from which love can be developed. So, for example, of this prayer wheel, when we designed this prayer wheel, initially it had a crystal ball on top as a top ornament. But actually, I removed that part. I didn't want the crystal top, but I wanted it to be shaped like a mother's nipple and to be in like a wooden nipple. And that is because whenever we see this nipple, we remember our mother. And when we remember the mother, we are able to reflect on love. Love can then arise. And so that's why the Buddha explained. So how many mothers do you have? When the Buddha were to ask you how many mothers do you have, you may just normally say that, oh, I have one mother. But that's not quite true. The Buddha would say that for many lifetimes, your mind has never died. It always continues on and keeps taking birth. And therefore, if your mind kept going, it must have taken on many bodies. So then, wouldn't that mean that you've also had many mothers? So then it starts to make sense. And you think that, oh, yes, I must have had thousands of bodies in countless lifetimes. So it's very likely that all beings have actually been my mother at some point. And so that is why we always say in our prayer, all mother sentient beings, limitless as space. That's so?
There is for the so portrait, 산지 좀 되게 포래. 원래 산지가 포래. 산지의 소리 다지 좀 되게 산지 좀 되게 가르쳐요. 오다 당보사 총초도 턱지 바로 잠이 있으면서 초산 닦아내야 버려야지. 그러니까 보통 정말로 다 쏟아내지만 들이 잠때들은 바로 드스마 조랑지를 창조거래. 삼재요는 gem마요래. 삼재요는 추첨요래. 삼재요는 조바요래. 삼재요는 쫀류요래. 삼재요는 삼대요래. 그 탐치 창나 들 자독들이 삼재요래. 시합도 다독 시합 받아서만 시합도 받아서만 가리지. 시합도 받아서만 랑 생부대로 나오냐만 대로 그래야지. 나오냐 봐도 내로 하고서 오 드네 통다디 나그네티 요 말했지. 매는 랍산서 요래지. 오저 로버트 베르 나들 로버트 용거 요래서.
And so this bowl, whose bowl is this? It's the Buddha's bowl. And then who is the Buddha? What did the Buddha do? First, the Buddha aroused the mind of bodhicitta. And then, secondly, over the course of 3 endless aeons, he worked tirelessly, accumulating merit. He even gave up his wife and child for the sake of others out of his bodhicitta. And what he accumulated, what he practiced throughout all this time is the 6 paramitas, which flowed naturally from his love. So if you have love, you have generosity. If you have love, you have ethical discipline, you have patience, you have diligence, you have meditation, and finally, you have wisdom. Wisdom is the ultimate perfection. And so what is being perfected when you perfect wisdom? So the natural state of the mind currently is clouded by this thought of me and I. So there's a sense of me. And when you realize that it doesn't actually truly exist the way you thought, it goes away. And when you realize it can go away, you see that it's not really truly there, substantially existing. It is just a temporary, a momentary stain in the mind. That's all.
파르더 심바 족티 제시 전을 같이 망보래 이나한테 삼티르데 창이요래 지엠라리 베철 노르드는 송요래 오 파르더 심바도 저 노르드를 가래들 오 되니다 나디 방법 파르나스 dimbasawa lola meja daji yin zo che gore danji chenpo mena yin le ba tong ta go as yo je bang ba pram la tsen sa ba lola me yo ji tam che bang ba yo je bang sa de ma chang mo ta cha yin le de tsen ge ta ta ba le o de ta rang ga ge ka re che na de sam te de thola ma tang si de la de 동남아자 판로 주바사와로 주바시와데 강기 같이 좋지 주바데 돌아마당지 배도 조보 조모니 지 강기 같이 지나 주바 공들이 삼지 타송아 타속 삼지 팀보 차 사정세면 저도고 요래지 동남아로 주바사와로 메시 데르데리 제시 봐요 되게 삼지에 송고 요래 네 남님 잡아매 봐나 쪼리사와로 쪼리시바죠 지시 봐요 송고요래 지다 책도 송 하장사치 보면 남이 바로는 쪼리사와로 메시 나는 네 바로는 사비사와로 메서 들이다 지시 봐요 되는 딱네 탄 이 삼태에 답보지 않으니 답보지 않고 그래 때들이 영화를 봤냐니 영화를 봤지 다 삼태에 들이 내lok도 바로 시락사와로 라그 생분 내록도 다 하고 그래. 라그 생분 내록도 가려야 되는. 라그 생분 내록은 해서 남카다 그래. 나지니 요 말했지. 나지니 매나 나지니 소소 호와들이 당원 나지니 저랬지. 저들이 나지니 저러면 새로 나지니 요 말했지. 오 나지니 가능성을 돼. 제 타운 나인지 말래요 그랬지. 나인지 말 가려려고 그래. 내가 자고 내가 나게 잘해 내가 나게서 그래 르고 좋아질래 오늘 르기를 잡아도 받지 잡아버리면 샘내록 때는 남카나게 남카는 이요 말아와시 때는 세분이 내록이 배바들 대하고는 또 담고 대마 조시하고서 대 마제 받을 달디디 마제 받을 삼제대 고요레시 삼제대 달디디 세서는 우리 나진이 왜 하고 그랬더니 다 심지 담제 셉디셉디 개토거래스 나진이 미네들이다 셉디셉디 차토거래스
And so, so the Buddha gave many teachings on the 6 paramitas, but all of them really are rooted in loving kindness. And there is a very brief teaching on the paramitas by Milarepa. So he was asked, well, can you explain the paramitas? And Milarepa then replied, excuse me, regarding the first one, when we truly let go of self-grasping, there is no greater generosity. Or it says, on the other side, self-clinging has been relinquished. Generosity is nothing other than that. So that is ultimate generosity. When there is no me, no self, then there's also no other. So mainly when we practice generosity, we should consider others more important than ourselves. And if we don't think so much about ourselves, we can be generous naturally. So then secondly, Milarepa said that if you truly let go of deceit or deceiving others, there is no better ethical discipline than that. And so that means essentially being completely honest in whatever you do. Then next is patience. He said that when patience, so patience is nothing other than, does here, on the other side, on the other side, there is no fear of reality. So aside from having no fear of reality, there is no other patience than that. So no matter what difficulties arise, being patient means you never lose your love, no matter what happens. And for example, if there are 2 friends and if they are patient with one another, then no matter how many challenges they encounter together, if they practice patience in the end, this patience will turn into true bodhicitta. Then fourth is diligence. And it says that aside from practicing constantly, there's no other diligence than that. So diligence means to sustain an ongoing state of mindfulness and conscientiousness, carefulness. It is that mindfulness that really protects your love. If you make a diligent effort in being mindful, you will not lose your love. And then regarding the paramita of meditation, Milarepa said, aside from abiding in the natural state, settling in the natural state, there is no other meditation than that. So if you always stay in a state of mindfulness and awareness, you can always protect your love. So being in a state that settles in the natural state without distraction, then you perfect meditation and you protect mindfulness. And then Milarepa said, besides realizing your true nature, there is no other perfection of wisdom than that. And so when you realize the nature, your true nature, what do you actually realize? You realize that your mind is just like space, like open space where there is no boundary of self and other. And so samsara begins with this dualistic grasping of self and other. So it really begins with first grasping at me. There's a sense of me. First, there is this self-grasping. And for example, that manifests as, this is my teacup, this is my body. But actually the body is just like a kind of an empty bundle. So it is like a bundle of grass. It doesn't truly exist. There's just the mind. And the mind is like space. And if you understand this, then you understand the ultimate truth. But until this perception of me, this grasping at me is fully exhausted, we need to always cultivate love, loving kindness. And eventually, when this grasping, all dualistic grasping itself and other becomes completely undone, then all that remains is the Buddha nature. And then you will understand that this is the nature of all sentient beings. And understanding that, your mind will find peace. Marcel?
Sena Jim Jiang Sena, Tata Tisu Sena, Kala Tataya Meba, Kawaya Meba, Donea Meba Chadi Oris. Oh, they have to watch it, talk to your mercy. They Juban or De Chong. Don't make a serious Sami Roba Jagu Karela, Chujis are adoptable. They don't so now, young Mujale, Lake Tin Devil meaning. They thought the Latin Devil. Some thought that Chota, they were. They were Chadi. They said nothing. We soon say marketing to make a function. Jimbaka paying with the zone in make them. Down paying, they have been somewhat on 3. Logi Chamambonali, Churubambo, they were part of the Sabato paying. They have Chadi part of the Sabato. I thought they saw them. Saw them here, saw them dumb. So them they have a chair on the tail of the Toko. They had the break check somebody, so this somebody. They were a hako or Tevium, the hako said the Rita was Jibbaga Pium, then it's a tongue with Pium, there is Jobaga Pium, Tetabi, Tia de la Caria Tango Temutena. Oh, they are the devil jet. They are a Tata to Yore. They are a double down to young Yore. The double double top the carry. That's Hanji Jom Ding, Tambo Suna, the Munji, but the double jam, come on, more double jam, the Hana to go yore. This was such a hardcore money, Shep Timomina. This Hanji Rangan in Italy, Taki Jubum, Hoa, or Tamo Tap, Grita to chicken on a yore, or possible door. They come to that lamp in a Hanji lamp, they have it.
So then the Buddha in the beginning, the Buddha, and we can see that in his life stories, he practiced all the paramitas diligently. So he began with first practicing generosity diligently. You can just look at his life stories. Now the story of the Buddha Shakyamuni's life, for example, the Buddha gave away, like an act of generosity, his kingdom, his wife, and his child. So through giving everything away, being generous to beings, he perfected that paramita. And regarding this paramita, this actually also exists in other religions, like in Christianity. I once saw a Christian book that praised generosity and spoke of the importance of practicing generosity. And in that book, it explained that what does it mean to be generous? And it said that it means that what you give away that's what truly yours. What you keep for yourself, that is not truly yours. So we may hoard things and think that that's mine, but that's actually not really ours. And we can see how this is true by just looking at the world. So there are some who have a lot of a broad mind, have a lot of wealth, and they use that to help their country or the whole world. And as a result, they will find happiness in many different ways, even in mundane ways. And on the other hand, if one just clings to one's possessions, then they die clinging to this is mine, then that leads to a certain kind of rebirth. So this clinging of mind becomes this karmic imprint in the mind that is then tied to a body. And for example, there is these like small leech that they're like little insects that have attached to your skin, and then they keep drinking your blood until they become completely bloated with blood, and then when they're finally full, then they just fall off and die. So it is, that's very similar actually to the existence of a hungry spirit, and the result of being born in such a body is stinginess, greed, and So this is how beings fall into the three lower realms. It's through these karmic imprints in their mind. So it all comes down, for example, the suffering of the hungry spirits comes down to greed and fixation, grasping. So at the root of all that suffering is clinging, fixation. It's the fault of greed. So really reflect on what is the fault of being greedy, and what's the benefit of being generous. So when you reflect on that, you will see that if I'm generous and give to others, then I actually will also receive happiness as a result. So it doesn't matter whether it's in the context of worldly life or religious practice. We always find people that are very powerful or wealthy and really well off. And that is always due to their past generosity. So by being generous, it is like we are planting many seeds into a field, which then later grow into crops, which we then may harvest. And then there's a text called the Excellent Words of Advice by Sakyabandita, and in there it says that all wealth arises from past generosity. But if someone was miserly or greedy in a past life, then they may find themselves with nothing in this life. So we can actually see that there are some who just can't find any support, no one willing to support them. And that's because they lack merit. So maybe they end up not having any food to eat or having no home. And that comes from this refusing of ever wanting to share. And then there's others who always find people who are willing to help them. And that's because of the merit that they created in past lives. So in essence, whatever karma you plant will ripen naturally, just like a flower grows when watered. So the results of our karmic actions is something we can directly see in this world. We can witness that. There are many stories about that. There are many examples of the faults of greed and stinginess, and not just in Buddhism, but in many other religions as well. So the Buddha taught those 6 parameters, and he perfected the 6 parameters. And if we practice even just a fraction of that, even a little bit of that, we will gain great merit. And Jigden Sumgön said that the ripening of karma, cause and effect, is the natural manifestation of the momentary thought, the thought within your mind. So we need to understand the qualities of love and then the qualities that come from it. For example, if you have love, you will have generosity, you will have discipline, you will have patience, and so on naturally. And if you really reflect on that, you will see that it all comes from love. All happiness comes from love. And if you really understand that, then if you understand its value, then you will also want to preserve it. You will then want to find a way to preserve your love. So first you recognize it, then you protect it, you preserve it. And then in the end, you also give it away to others, you dedicate it. And that's actually the best method. It's if you dedicate this value of love and the good that you have created, it's like storing all your merit in like a treasure house. You store it there securely, and then you won't lose it. The thing is just that most people don't know about it. But it is said that the essence of method, or the essence of skillful means, is dedication. And then also it said in the For example, in various scriptures, such as the Sutra of the Three Heaps, the Three Heap Sutra, that this is the path, this is the skillful path of all the Buddhas, meaning that this path of first recognizing, protecting, and in the end, dedicating. So?
Yeah, those somebody don't give a Zobal the top go yore. Yeah, take more it. No road to Tamti, Jimbalatini, Jimba Tsum Zobatam, Tori Mary, Sada Mail, the top go. There is the double Johnny job machine. There it is in it. So chat to drop in Maori, that means the young day, the Giorgio J. Beckham. Mechatang war do Sachina, made it in the same thing that Dertami only. Hatang Yong, they hear it in it. Shabby what I'm saying. Oh, Millie Young married in Zapan Mima Wars. Millie Ojang, then Tower Sang Hanso Matana, but it's double that dancing. Marto Moeta, McGee, Domain, you want Tamsi, dancing in your Rana Sacha Chibuna, the little years are top jetty, the million boys top the Tamti, the chocolate, Chetsuman, the top, the is so to it. I've been to Tobaya, Rang Kawachibun, the Chibo day, or Tamatam Chility, one chat at the top of the Petu, Mona Lopa Petu, the Pokok, Zaban, and Tobaya, you know what I'm saying. That's the Dr. Tato, there. The other don't just a tower church, Dandy that are Targo yours. Oh, they are the David Jetan temperature. Oh, David Jetan something the thing or it. David just take part of your money. Come some same thing that David just take part of your money. There's something it. The other children, oh, something the true, Sanjay, the same rate. Oh, like the same that Jerry Sanjay. Seven Namkata, they sang jaded. Indeed, sang jaded, Sem Namkata, said with their look on. Oh, they're true, the Tama Chaketa, Dandy me by Tago. They're true, the children some secretary, Dandy me by Chardo. True, the genuine, the Pondra, the Sanjay Porres. Oh, and then something, Chote, true, ratio. Not getting variety. Not getting back and then turn and turn carry. Not simply something the way they are. Oh, not something to get him back with it. To get him by simply something, getting nature camare. May say like simply something chimona, they get him by it. Some get you that getting some say that they jump the cho say, or that they tell it. Doubling water in some good or dead.
And so then we are saying our prayer, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. And now in the six realms of samsara, we have attained a precious human life. And we call it precious because with a human life, we can attain enlightenment. And it is very rare. This human life is very rare. And why is it rare? Because the causes that lead to it are very rare. So a human life, a precious human life, comes from practicing perfect ethical conduct. And that is rare. And then secondly, having positive relationships, a pleasant appearance, and a long life, that comes from patience. And patience is also rare. And having wealth and abundance comes from generosity. That is also rare. So being born in the higher realms as a god or a human, all these qualities, the joys of the higher realms come from these rare causes. And we need to learn to preserve them. So rare, we call a precious human life rare because when we compare it to the other countless beings, we actually only have very few precious human lives. So, for example, it is said that compared to other beings in the lower realms, there are just as many gods and humans as there are dust particles on a single fingernail. So there's just very few compared to this vast plane of other sentient beings. So this is how rare human birth is in comparison. So some might say that, but there are so many people in the world, and yes, there are people in the world, but then what kind of people do we have in the world? So often we have people that are driven by their selfishness and their attachments and their hatred, and with that they cause a lot of suffering in the world. They are starting wars, they're causing famines and so forth, and that is all because they want all the happiness for themselves. They live in nice houses, in nice palaces, and then treat others around them really badly. They oppress, they misuse their power, and they cause a lot of harm, a lot of fighting and killing, while they themselves enjoy themselves in beautiful mansions. And so all of that is actually the karma of hatred and jealousy. And so when we see what people do in the world, we can see that a virtuous human life, a precious human life, is truly very rare. And so then we say in our prayer, may beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So may they be free from self-grasping. May they have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have love, loving kindness. There is really just one cause of all happiness, and that is loving kindness. That's the true cause of happiness for all sentient beings in the three realms. And so therefore, what we call the Dharma is nothing else but love. And what we call the Buddha is nothing other than your own mind. So the mind is the Buddha, the Dharma is love. And when you see your Buddha mind, what you see, that is when all dualistic thoughts have disappeared and you see your true nature. This mind becomes very vast. That is the Buddha within your mind. And you come to realize it through the Dharma. That is what purifies the mind. And it purifies the mind of grasping, self-grasping. So the Dharma allows us to see the Buddha within us. And then there's also the Sangha. And what is the Sangha? So the Sangha, for example, is one who holds this Buddha bowl and always remind themselves, I'm a Sangha. And what is the content of this bowl is love, which really is symbolic of the Dharma, and I'm a Sangha member. And what does that mean? As a Sangha, I must love all beings. I must give to all beings. I must have compassion for all beings. If you have that, if you have love for all beings, you are a true member of the Sangha. If you do not have love for all beings, then you are not a true Sangha. So this is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, our supreme source of refuge. So by understanding the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, this is where the path of refuge begins. So?
대회다 산지가 주주봉보 제제도 따대 사마하고 말에 상물에 사마하고 골말에 뛰느니 님보도 가르쳐는 배나 대자 탐하고 오마 조조들 너도 말린 거래 삼질이 내가 대저 삼질이 나를 장고 중에 참말 다니 니가 삼질을 다산 좋게 셈래 당가 조보 답질 삼질을 당 뭐가 저 자원 가세 대선 말에 자대 가래지 그 찌양 하마를 하죠 찌와 집을 줘 파마 대대로 저랑은 다 보자 드리파도 못 당을 들고 뜻이 삼질이 포조를 줘서래 포조를 줘래 들다다 자차 그래 어때 하자 뒤쳐와래 자들라도 하자 뒤쳐 뭐 담지 찌와래 상들 자라 삼질이 되고래 들이사바체 볼저로 가디는 소차체 통들이 파마는 통고래 파만 먹에 버치가 요 말에 들지와체 그래 들이사속 sem고부 탑 라나메 바데리 그 주바가 보자 그래 주바 고사랑을 냠도 요버죠 냠도 되니 대조 데르스 바고 그래 데르스 삼제 대양 사속 sem는 저도 그래 너는 강나 삼제 살제와로 대 사속 sem는 저탑고 그래 대다로 상모상들이 제시 봐요 그들이 주바니 그들이 삼대지 다 보자 더 그래 들자기들에
So the Buddha gave 84,000 Dharma teachings. Then maybe you think that, oh, but I can't know all of them. There's no way I can know all of these teachings. And the answer is you don't need to know everything, all of these teachings. What you need to know is the essence. It's just like if you have 100 female cows, then you don't need all of their milk. You want that one piece of butter that comes from churning all of that milk. So we want the essence of the teachings, and the essence of all the teachings is love, or loving kindness. So, and this love must arise for all beings. So also our enemies that we dislike, enemies and friends being equal. Because some people say that I truly love my friends, but there are a few special people that I just don't like. But that is not true love if that singles out anyone else. So the way you should think about these people that you dislike, like enemies or adversaries, is that in a past life, they were actually someone who was exceptionally kind and loving to you. And however, you did not treat them well at that time. You did not repay their immense kindness, so they became angry, resentful. And that is why in this life, they show up as these enemies that you dislike. So the truth is that they were even kinder than others to you in the past. And the anger now is just due to you not repaying that kindness. And so if you are able to see this, you will be able to love them. And then you will be able to love whoever you encounter, any animal or being, whoever you encounter. So that is actually the best way for cultivating bodhicitta. And then you need patience to protect your love. So how can you protect your love? So with patience. So it begins with practicing patience with those around you, all your companions, those people who are around you. And through this, through having patience with the people around you, then your love, your connection to them transforms into bodhicitta. So whoever you love, you let that grow into bodhicitta. And to preserve it, you need mindfulness, heedfulness and patience. So these protect, preserve the love within you. So that's it. Also,
Tuji je la ya.
last Rinpoche.
Satong holo je jabo tong je to kapa sang besa je to namka tawa chapa je wa je sabachi re te le chak sa lo.
Rinpoche just said the Chinrasic prayer from the Yellow Prayer Book. So the wheel turning king, how to say it in English? But you know that prayer, I don't have to memorize now. Yeah.
Page 25, 27. In the Yellow Prayer Book, page 27. Your 1,000 arms are the 1,000 wheel-turning kings. Your 1,000 eyes are the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate eon. Your love is boundless like space, as supplicate the Bodhisattva Chenrezig.
There's this lotus flower image with the 8 lotus petals, and so these represent the 8 closed suns, or the 8 great bodhisattvas, disciples of the Buddha, and this is also a special symbol that we use in the Qigong lineage.
Thank you.